Okay, welcome back, kiddos. Now we are moving on to Unit 3. We're going to talk about something that looks like this. So we're going to be talking about parallel lines cut by a transversal. Okay, so what is a transversal? Okay, so if we look at these pictures right here, we see parallel lines, right? We know parallel lines are the ones that go the same way. Okay, just like this. Parallel lines have been cut in these instances by a line that goes across. So a transversal is that line that we call that cuts across two or more lines. Okay, so let's look at this right over here. What is the transversal of this picture right here? Okay, so we said the line that cuts across. These are the parallel lines. So this line that cuts across, okay, so this transversal, we're going to say is that this is line M. Okay, so that's line M right over there. That's the transversal. Okay, so then the parallel lines. Parallel lines are the ones that go like that. And we're going to look for, we're going to look for that symbol right there, right? The one that has the arrow on it. That's going to tell us that it is parallel. So we see that there and we see that there. These are the parallel lines, right? So line A and line B. So lines A and B. Okay, so that's what we're talking about right over there. Those are the parallel lines. All right, so it says, for which three other angles will 120 degrees be the measure? And then how do you know? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about this. Let's find the one angle that we do know. Okay, so we know that one angle is always going to be equal to another one when they are what's called vertical angles, right? So if we have lines like this and lines like this angle right over here and this angle right over here, right? We would call those vertical angles, okay? And they are congruent. Okay, so congruent means same measure. Okay, so whenever we have two angles, okay, so we can say like right here, right, and right here. Two angles that are across from each other, those are congruent. So if we look at right here, this 120 and this 4, anytime we have two lines, it makes those vertical angles. So this line crossing and this line crossing means this is the same angle as that. Okay, so we're going to say that angle 4 is the same as 120 because they are vertical angles. Okay, and vertical angles are congruent. Okay, all right, so we're going to investigate which one of these, two more of these are also going to be equal to 120. Now, you may be able to guess already. If I told you two of these angles are also equal to 120, think about what you would guess for right there, and we're going to come back to it. Okay, so let's now get into some investigation. So whenever we have these parallel lines cut by a transversal, certain angle relationships are formed. So here's the relationships. Okay, so if you notice, we're talking about different ones that are starred on each of these. So let's take a look at this first group right over here. I'm going to tell you exactly how we can discern which one this is. Okay, so this says this one right here and this one right here. Okay, so we can imagine that angle right there and that angle right there, right? Well, if this is our transversal, okay, so let's go ahead and highlight our transversal. If that's our transversal, let's look at the placement of these angles. Okay, this is on one side, this is on the right side, right? This is on the left side. So we're going to say that those are on alternate sides of the transversal. Okay, so alternate means on either side. So it's on either sides of the transversal, right? Okay, what else do we know? They are on the interior. So alternate on the interior. Interior we know means inside. Okay, the parallels. Okay, so if we know that these are the parallel lines, right, I'm going to I'm going to tell you that these are parallel. We're looking for that symbol there, right? So we don't see that symbol, but I'm going to tell you that we're assuming that these are parallel. Okay, so we're going to assume these are parallel lines. Parallel lines. Okay, so assume that those are parallel lines. Okay, so they're on alternate sides, and then they're on the interior. So imagine this one right here, right? If we said that this is our transversal, okay, so this angle right over here, this angle right over here, and this angle right over here, right? They're on alternate sides. They're on alternate sides, and then they're on the interior right here of the parallels, right? So we're going to call these alternate interior angles. Okay, so that's what those are called. They're alternate interior angles because they're on alternate sides and they're on the interior of the parallels. Okay, interior of the parallels. So we're going to call those alternate interior angles, and these angles are always going to be congruent. Okay, so these are going to be congruent angles. Okay, always going to be congruent angles. Okay, next. So keeping that in mind, let's take a look right over here. All right, so on this one right here, let's go ahead and highlight those transversals first. Okay, so this one right here, that's our transversal, that's our transversal. What do we notice? Are they on the same side or alternate sides? They are on alternate sides, right? So we're going to say they are, let's change the color on this one. So these are on alternate sides of the transversal. And what are they? Are they inside the parallels or are they on the outside? Okay, these are on the exterior, right? Exterior means outside. So they're on the outside of the parallels. Okay, so if they are on the alternate side and on the outside, the exterior of the parallels, we're going to call these alternate exterior angles. Okay, alternate exterior angles. And what do you think about these? Do you like the same or different? Well, they both do look the same, right? So we're going to call those are congruent angles also. So we do not even have to measure these at all. If I know what the measure of this is the same. If I know the measure of this is the same because they're on alternate sides and on the exterior of those parallels. Okay, so we talked about on these first two, alternate sides, right? These are both alternate. These are on the inside, called the interior. These are on the outside, called the exterior. Okay, alternate exterior. That's the difference. All right, so now let's take a look at these two. Okay, so this one right over here. Okay, let's go and highlight our transversal again. So if that's our transversal, let's check out these angles, right? So this angle right over here, right, and this angle right over here. Okay, so this angle, right, and then this angle. Okay, so what do we know? They're on the same side of the transversal. So same side of the transversal. Right? They're both on the same side of the transversal. And here's the main thing. They are in the corresponding, so the same corner. Okay, so if we look at like this, right? This corner looks the same as that corner, right? It'd be like this on that corner of a box, right? That corner of a box. So it's the corresponding corner and it's on the same side. So we're going to call those corresponding angles. Okay? And these angles, these corresponding angles, in fact, we look at the shape, they look the same. These are also congruent angles. So those are also congruent angles. Okay, so then here's our last one. Okay, so let's go ahead and highlight the transversal on this one. Now, what do we notice? Are these on the same side or on alternate sides? These are like these, right? They're on the same side. Alternate sides would be opposite sides, right? These are on the same side. So same side of the transversal. All right, and then what do we notice about are they on the inside or on the outside? Right, so on this one we have one on the inside, one on the outside, right? One on the inside, one on the outside. These are both on the inside, right? So those are on the interior of the parallels, right? Interior of the parallels. So we're going to call these same side interior angles. So same side interior angles. Now these also are called consecutive angles. Consecutive angles. So on the test, and especially our DCP, they may be called different things. Okay, now these are the only ones, if you notice, let's check out the shape of these, right? So this one has this that's larger than 90, right? This one is less than 90, right? So we know they can't be equal, right? This one is greater than 90. This is less than 90, right? So they can't be equal, so they are supplementary angles, right? So supplementary angles, we know, add to 180, right? These add to 180. So congruent angles are the same measure. Supplemental adds at 180. So here's what we want to recognize then with these. Okay, so all these are parallel lines cut by a transversal. As we see, they're in different spots. No matter where they're at, all these are equal in measure. They're all congruent angles, all of them, except this one. This is the only one that adds to 180. And let's check out the shape. That's greater than 90, greater than 90, greater than 90, greater than 90. This less than 90, less than 90, less than 90, less than 90. So if they're both greater than 90 or both less than 90, that means they're equal. Okay, so let's write that down right over here. So if they're both greater than 90, right? So if one's like that and one's like that, or if one's less than 90 and the other one's less than 90, then they are congruent. Okay? So, or we can think same measure, right? So that's all these angles that we're talking about. See, like this one, that's greater than 90, that's greater than 90, so they're congruent, right? Greater than 90, so they're congruent. Okay? And then the only other option is like this. Okay, check this out. This one right here is greater than 90, right? It opens up larger than 90. This one's less than 90. So if they're like this, if they're one that's greater than 90, right? And one that's less than 90, right? Or say one's that's less than 90, right? And one that's greater than 90, right? Then they are supplemental, which means they add to 180. Okay? So that's what we want to remember about these. Okay? So all these angles that are cut by a transversal are either congruent or they're supplemental. The only ones that are supplemental are the ones that are just like that, where one's greater than 90, one's less than 90. Okay? So now let's get back to our list then that we said. Which ones are going to be equal to 120? Well, we said the ones that are going to be equal to 120 are alternate interior, right? This is one of them that we said, alternate interior. These are going to be congruent, right? alternate interior are congruent. So let's look over here. If 4 is equal to 120, right? The other side of this, right, would be up here. The other side and also on the interior is number 5, right? So number 5. So we can say number 5 because it's alternate interior with number 4. Right? It's alternate interior with number 4, right? What else? Then we also number 8, right? Because it's a vertical angle with which one? Number 5, right? We know if two angles are right across from each other, they're equal. So 120 and 4 are equal, right? And then we know, because we know that is equal to 120, then we know this one and this one are equal to 120, right? Because they're alternate interior. Okay, and then if we know that's 120, then we know that's 120. Okay, so let's go right through with some practice on our next page. All right, so if we go right over here, we're going to keep this right next to it. That's why I made this special color so we can remember this for our reference. So let's look over here, and they want us to answer these questions about these, okay? So the first thing that we want to do is we want to remember what we talked about on these angles, right? So if we see an angle that looks like this and an angle that looks like that, if we have two lines that cross, right, these are called vertical angles, right? And they are congruent. Okay, so, and then if we said if one's like that, right, if one's less than 90 and less than 90, or if one's greater than 90, right, and greater than 90, then they are congruent. Congruent, right? But if we said that if one's less than 90 and the other one is greater than 90, then they are supplemental, which means they add to 180. Okay, so we're going to think about that as we practice these over here. Okay, so let's look at this first one. Okay, it says, find the value of x. All right, find the value of x. Well, let's look over here. These are on the, let's go and highlight our transversal. So if that's our transversal, what do we know? They are on the same side, right? And they are on the interior, right? So we're going to call those same side interior. Well, what do we know? This one is greater than 90, obviously, because it's 102, right? This one is less than 90, right? So they look like they are supplemental. Right? And if we look at our notes, right, we said that same side interiors are supplemental, right? That's this look right over here. That looks just like that. That's what we want to recognize. Okay? Not just like it, but basically the same, right? All right, so if we know that they add, if they're supplemental, that means they add to 180, right? So let's just say that this angle, right, which was x, we're trying to figure out what that is, plus this one equals 180, right? So we can say x plus 102 equals 180, right? Well, what would we do? We just say, we put that into our calculator, right? We'd subtract 102, and that would give us 78 degrees, right? Because what would we do? If we're solving, we'd subtract that 102 over there, right? So hopefully that's making a little bit more sense from our solving. That's basically what we're doing, right? So x equals 78 degrees. Okay, let's keep it moving. What about this right here, right? These are on alternate sides, right? Alternate. And what do we notice? Ooh, we got one parallel line, we got another parallel, and a third one. So this tells us they are all parallel. So we're not even concentrating on that. Let's just look at these two right here, right? So if we know these two right over here, they are on alternate sides and they're on the interior, right? Alternate interior angles are congruent, right? We said that alternate interior angles are congruent. So that means x equals 42 degrees. Once we recognize that those are congruent, then that's all we need to know, right? And we notice this is less than 90, and that's obviously less than 90 because it's 42. All right, let's keep it moving. Hopefully you're recognizing these are easy, coming easy. All right, now let's look at this. Ooh, We have two variables right here, right? We have x and y and 47. How do we know that? What do we do? The first thing that we do is look for the easiest relationship. Okay, so these are two variables on these. All right, so what's the easiest relationship? What do we know about 47 and y, or x and y? I'm sorry, x and 47. Well, here's what I do. What I really notice about x and 47, these are x and 47 degrees are vertical. Right? So if they're vertical angles, that means they're equal to each other. Right? That means they're congruent. Right? So x equals 47 degrees. Right? So then what do we know about y and 47? Y and 47, if we look at it, they add to 180, right? Y and 47 add to 180, right? So we can just say 180 minus 47 equals 153, right? So that means y equals 153 degrees, right? So all we have to do is subtract that from 180, right? We know both of these add up to 180, right? If this is our transversal, right? Makes sense, right? If that's a straight line, these two have to add to 180, right? And this one has to equal that one. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, next. Let's look at this right here. What's the easiest relationship? Okay, so what do we know? X and y, we don't know either of those, but what about x and 142? X and 142, or x and y? Well, y and 142, right? This y and 142, what do we know about those? Well, they're on alternate sides, right? Alternate sides of this transversal, right? And what are they, on the inside or outside? They are on the outside, right? Alternate exterior, right? So alternate exterior angles are congruent. So once I know that, then I know that y equals 142 degrees. Okay, once I know that they're congruent, that's what tells me y equals 142. All right, then what do we know about x and y? X and y are supplemental. Right? That means they add to 180, right? Because we see this, right? This is that plus that equals 180, right? So if if y is 142, that means x plus y equals 180, right? So that means x plus 142 equals 180, right? So then if we just subtract that 142, that means x equals 38 degrees. Okay, so we could do it many different ways, but that's the easiest, right? Those two, and then that. So we said all these angles, though, are either equal to each other or they're supplemental. Well, we see this one definitely is less than 90, right? So we know it can't be equal 142. It has to add with this to equal 180. All right, so the more we practice, I know it will come even easier to you. And let's just take a look at these last two. Let's step it up. All right, now we're going to go into some algebra ones. All right, so on these two, what do we notice about these two? They are on the same side and interior. Right, same side interior, right? If this is our transversal, same side interior angles are congruent. All right, so if they're congruent, that means they're equal to each other, right? So we can say 8x plus 9 equals 81, right? They want us to solve for x, right? So let's just do what we do, right? We're going to, first, we're just going to subtract 9 from both sides, right? Then we're going to cancel that out. So we're going to have 8x equals 72, right? We're going to divide that side by 8, divide that side by 8, cancels out, x equals 9, okay? So that means if we substituted 9 in here, right, that would mean 8 times 9, right, plus 9, right, which equals 81 degrees. And that makes sense, right? Okay, so that's what that means, is we're going to substitute 9 in place of the x. All right, let's keep it moving. Okay, this one right over here. What do we notice about this one? This one is less than 90, right? That's less than 90. This one is greater than 90, right? This is less than 90. This is greater than 90, so they have to be supplemental. Because one is acute and one is obtuse. Okay, one of them is obtuse and one is obtuse. So we're going to say that 4x minus 8 plus 6x plus 18 equals 180, right? Because we know that supplemental means they equal 180. All right, so now let's just follow along with what we do, right? We know 4x plus 6x gives us 10x's, right? Okay, and then we're going to circle that negative 8 and a positive 18. That's going to give us positive 10, right? Equals 180. So we're not going to forget that that's a negative 8. That's why we're circling it, right? So now let's just draw our line. We're going to subtract 10. We're going to subtract 10. Cancels out. 10x equals 170, right? We're going to divide by 10. Divided by 10. You may already know this. X equals 17. That's our answer right there. Okay, so we just looked at the relationship. That's less than 90. This is greater than 90, so in this relationship, they have to add to 180. Okay, now let's look at we're getting very close. We're looking at our toughest one. Okay, so this is the toughest one. This is the highest level, but I know you got this. This one is a y, right? Ooh, that's x. So I want to work with only one first. So the first thing I'm going to do, determine which one of these I can work with, right? I see this has an x, this has an x, so I need to use both of these first. So what do we recognize? This one, right, is less than 90, right? That's small. That's an acute angle. This one is greater than 90. So if this is greater than 90, that's less than 90. I know they have to be supplementary. Right? They have to add to 180 because there's no way they could be equal to each other, right? So I'm going to say 8x minus 2 plus 4x minus 10 equals 180, right? Because we said all these angles are that. So let's add our x's, right? So we have 8x and 4x. We're going to say that's 12x. We have negative 2 and negative 10. That's negative 12, right? Minus 180. So we're going to add 12. We're going to add 12. Okay, that cancels out. 12x equals 192. Okay, so now we're just going to divide both of those by 12, right? So we're going to divide that by 12. We're going to divide that by 12. So that gives us x equals 16. Okay, so now that x equals 16, let's look at the y, right? So if x is equal to 16, what do we know about this and this? Right? Or actually, let's look at this and this, right? Look at that relationship. These two are vertical angles, right? So 8x minus 2 has to be equal to 2y because these are vertical angles, right? These are vertical angles. Okay, so if they're vertical angles, that means they're equal to each other. Well, if we said that x is equal to 16, that means I can put 16 in place of that x, right? So that's 8 times 16 minus 2 equals 2y, right? So then 8 times 16, that's going to give us 128 minus 2 equals 2y. So that's going to give us 126 equals 2y. Divide both sides by 2, divide by 2. Okay, so that's going to give us a y over here, right? It's going to be equal to 63, right? And it's not going to be equal to 63 degrees. It's just equal to 63 because this measurement is 2 times 63, right? So that's what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the relationship between those. And one thing we want to definitely keep in mind, okay? Here's the main crux of everything on these. All these angles, every single angle we talk about today are either equal to each other because they have the same measure or they're supplemental. There's no way angles that are one that's acute and one that's obtuse can be equal. So they have to be supplemental. All right, you got this. Just help me, let me help you, and let's make it happen.